Serrano, mejor conocido como el Mini-Leak.
Del Chapo Guzmán, y en específico hacia su hijo Iván Archivaldo Guzmán.
Chapo Guzmán, conocidos como los Chapitos, han sabido recibir el...
The three most violent sons of Sinaloa's most feared. Dusty roads echoing gunfire and whispered fears. This is the birthplace of tales that send shivers down the spine. We're journeying into the heart of Mexico's underworld, where power is won with blood and treachery as the rule of the game. Three individuals stand out in this grim saga, each more violent and feared than the last. But hold on, one of them ends up in a place as unexpected as it is shocking. Keep that intrigue in mind as we delve into their stories. Number 1. Demoso Lopez Serrano, El Mini-Leak. The blood of crime ran thick in Demoso's veins. His father, Demoso Lopez Nunez, was a high-ranking lieutenant in the Sinaloa Cartel, and his godfather was none other than the infamous Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. From a young age, Demoso was steeped in the world of drug trafficking, power struggles, and violence. He was, quite literally, born into the business. Growing up, Demoso saw firsthand the terrifying power wielded by his father and El Chapo. Their influence extended far and wide, affecting politics, law enforcement, and the daily lives of ordinary citizens. This exposure to the brutal realities of the cartel life shaped Demoso's worldview and life path. But despite his upbringing, Demoso wasn't just a puppet in his father's hands. He forged his own path, with a violent ambition that surpassed that of his father and godfather. He earned the nickname El Mini-Leak, a nod to his father's alias, El Licenciado. This title, derived from the Spanish word for a university graduate, hinted at the cunning intelligence that Demoso wielded as a weapon in his rise through the cartel ranks. El Mini-Leak found himself right in the middle of a family war, a conflict as intense as it was deadly. On the one side was his own flesh and blood, his father. On the other were El Chapo's sons. The streets of Sinaloa turned into a battlefield, with each side vying for dominance. It was a brutal power struggle, and El Mini-Leak was right in the thick of it. His reputation wasn't built overnight. Every step he took, every move he made, it all added to the legend of El Mini-Leak. Then something unexpected happened. In August 2017, El Mini-Leak turned himself in to the US authorities. It was a move that stunned the underworld. The mighty El Mini-Leak, the feared player in the Sinaloa saga, was now in the hands of the law. There, he faced his fate. He stood before the court and pleaded guilty to drug conspiracy charges in January 2018. With that, he admitted his part in the ruthless world of drug trafficking. The godson of El Chapo, the feared El Mini-Leak, was now just another inmate. From his prison cell, the once feared figure could only anticipate what his future held. Then, the day of his hearing arrived. Judge Dana Sabraw was set to pass the final verdict. The room fell silent as he prepared to speak. Then came the words no one expected to hear. El Mini-Leak was sentenced to a prison term of a little more than 5 years, equal to the time he had already spent in custody. Shock filled the courtroom. El Mini-Leak's sentence was drastically less severe than anyone had anticipated. The judge called his case extraordinary and exceptional. These were words one didn't often hear in a courtroom, especially for a case involving a known cartel member. However, El Mini-Leak's situation was different. He had turned himself in, surrendering to the US authorities, and had agreed to testify against his godfather, El Chapo. His willingness to cooperate played a massive role in the court's decision. The judge's gavel echoed in the silent courtroom, marking the end of El Mini-Leak's hearing. He was ordered to forfeit $1 million in drug proceeds, a vast sum of money attained through illicit activities, but he wasn't given any additional prison time. El Mini-Leak was free to walk out of his cell, a surprising turn for a man once deeply enmeshed in Mexico's drug wars. The plot thickened further when, during his trial, US prison officials had to relocate El Mini-Leak due to a threat by another inmate who intended to have him killed for cooperating. News of the ruling reached Mexico, and it stirred a wave of reactions. The Attorney General's office issued an urgent call. They wanted Lopez Serrano, or El Mini-Leak, extradited to Mexico as soon as possible. They weren't calling for his extradition for his drug offenses. They had another case in mind. El Mini-Leak, however, claimed innocence. He alleged that he was being framed. By El Chapo's son and corrupt Mexican officials. But his denials did little to quell the Mexican government's determination to prosecute him. Mexico sought to prosecute him for the murder of renowned journalist Javier Valdez Cardenas, the founder-editor of Rio 12, brutally assassinated back in 2017 in Sinaloa. Mexico's thirst for justice began as early as 2020, when the Attorney General obtained an arrest warrant against El Minilik and formally requested his extradition. Meanwhile, Demoso was released in 2022 after a U.S. federal court in Southern California found he had cooperated and already served his sentence in a maximum security prison in the United States. However, the U.S. government put a halt to Mexico's pursuit of justice. Citing no need for extradition, the request was denied. Undeterred, the Mexican prosecutor's office resubmitted another formal request for extradition, resetting the legal process. Admitting the procedural back and forths, El Minilik made a surprising move. In a public letter, he denied ordering the journalist's murder. Instead, he placed the blame squarely on the shoulders of the Chapitos. Demoso shared a chilling account of how the Chapitos had threatened and pressured Javier Valdez over an article he was to publish, a narrative that heightened tensions even further. El Minilik described a series of events, including threats, refusal to halt publication, and a bold move by an armed group to seize the newspaper's distribution. Despite these alarming episodes, Javier Valdez chose to republish the report, a decision that would sadly lead to his death. Despite pleading guilty in 2018 and admitting to his role in multiple drug-related crimes, it seemed increasingly unlikely that El Minilik would be extradited back to Mexico, especially with the recent indictments against El Chapo's sons and his potential testimony's value. Number 2. Jesus Alfredo Guzman Salazar. Born to Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Maria Alejandra Salazar Hernandez, Jesus Alfredo was bred in a world where the lines between right and wrong were often blurred. His mother, the first wife of El Chapo, comes from a lineage with close ties to another Mexican drug kingpin, Hector Luis Palma Salazar. This association with the underworld ran deep in his family, shaping his formative years. Jesus Alfredo, also known as El Gordo, grew up under the paradox of a protective yet dangerous father. El Chapo, despite being a ruthless drug lord, was known to be a loving father, imparting the cruel lessons of survival in their brutal world. Yet it wasn't all grim. Jesus Alfredo and his siblings, despite their father's dark line of work, were brought up in affluence, with wealth amassed from the cartel's operations. They lived a life that was filled with extravagances most people could only dream of. But the wealth came with a heavy price tag, and the young Jesus Alfredo was soon caught in the crosshairs of his father's enemies. The Drug Enforcement Administration, or the DEA, the team that goes head-to-head with drug rings, has made a bold move. They have doubled the reward they had offered for information leading to the arrest of two brothers, Jesus Alfredo and his elder brother, Ivan Archivaldo. The new reward? A massive $10 million for each brother. That's twice what it was before, making it one of the biggest bounties ever put up by the US officials. To put that in context, their father, El Chapo, once had a $5 million reward on his head. That's half of what's now on offer for his sons. Even the bounty for Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri, a high-profile global terrorist, is just over twice this amount at $25 million. Why such a high price? Jesus Alfredo Guzman Salazar is believed to be part of a powerful criminal group. It's a group that US officials say is one of the main suppliers of fentanyl across the United States. Fentanyl is a powerful drug, much stronger than heroin. Its spread has led to countless lives lost and families broken. Catching these two could be a big step in stopping its flow into the country. But the story doesn't end with him. He has two half-brothers, Ovidio Guzman Lopez and Joaquin Guzman Lopez. Ovidio is currently behind bars in Mexico waiting to be sent to the US. Joaquin is also involved in the same unlawful business. All of them together run half of the Sinaloa Cartel, a big name in the world of drug trafficking. The other half of the Sinaloa Cartel is under the control of an old man named Ismael El Mayo Zambada. He was a close friend of their father, El Chapo. This dramatic chain of events started rolling when El Chapo was arrested in January 2016. He was then sent to the US the following January in 2017. There, he faced a trial and was found guilty. The sentence was life in prison. With El Chapo gone, there was a power vacuum in the cartel. It was his sons who stepped up to fill it. Known as Los Chapitos, these brothers picked up where their father left off. Under their leadership, the Sinaloa Cartel has held on to its spot as one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. While the sons of El Chapo, known as Los Chapitos, have been moving the pieces in the world of drug trafficking, they've kept their grip tight. However, in the shadows, the DEA agents have been edging closer to their operation. As a result, an indictment unsealed. The accusation is that Los Chapitos have been flooding the streets of the United States with fentanyl over the last decade, causing the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. This isn't just an accusation, it's a grave warning. Fentanyl is synthetic, and it's around 50 times stronger than heroin. It's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. It's known to be the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 19, and the number of fatal overdoses from this drug has jumped by a staggering 94% between 2019 to 2021. At least 196 fentanyl-related deaths each day during that period. So, how have Los Chapitos been pulling this off? They've got connections. China, for instance. They import the precursor materials to Mexico from there. Once in Mexico, the materials are turned into the deadly fentanyl powder and pills in secret labs hidden from the prying eyes of the law. They've got a network, too. They use couriers, secret tunnels, and stash houses scattered across Mexico and the United States. These routes allow them to smuggle the lethal drug into at least 27 American cities. It's a well-organized, high-stakes operation that has proven deadly effective. But the DEA hasn't been idle. They've managed to infiltrate the Sinaloa Cartel and Los Chapitos operation. Over the last year and a half, they've gained unprecedented access to the organization's highest levels. The agents have followed them across the world, piecing together the puzzle of this powerful cartel's operation. On one side, there are Los Chapitos, continuing the family business of their infamous father, El Chapo. On the other, there's the DEA, doubling the reward and intensifying their efforts to bring these criminal brothers to justice. This is more than just a battle against drug traffickers. It's a struggle to save countless lives from the grip of the lethal fentanyl that Los Chapitos have unleashed on the streets. However, dismantling a cartel as powerful as the Sinaloa Cartel is no easy task. It's like a many-headed hydra. Cut off one head and another seems to sprout up in its place. But the DEA is undeterred. They're using every tool in their arsenal, from infiltrating the cartel to offering multi-million-dollar rewards to bring Los Chapitos to justice. Number 3. Ivan Archivaldo Guzman. Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, El Chapito. Of the 4 sons of El Chapo, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman Salazar, also known as El Chapito, takes a special spot. He's the eldest, and many say he's the one truly pulling the strings in the cartel's operations. El Chapito's story begins in Zapopan, a city in Jalisco, Mexico, where he was born August 15, 1983. From the moment he could understand words, his father and uncles taught him about the family business. He learned about trading drugs like others might learn about baseball or riding a bike. This education wasn't in classrooms, but in secret hideouts and hidden valleys away from prying eyes. But it wasn't just the men who influenced young Ivan. His mother, Maria Alejandra Salazar Hernandez, played a crucial role as well. She was El Chapo's first wife, marrying him when she was young in 1977. There's a saying in the family, you don't just marry a person, you marry their family. In Maria's case, that family included Mexican drug kingpin Hector Luis Palma Salazar. The family ties were more than just marriage vows, they were bonds of blood and illicit deals, and they tied young Ivan to a world of crime. Growing up in such a family, Ivan was quickly drawn into a life of crime. One incident that stands out in his long list of wrongdoings was his involvement in the murder of a Canadian exchange student, Christian Dale, and her Mexican friend, Cesar Augusto Pulido Mendoza. This crime landed him behind bars, but prison bars are often no match for power and money. After a successful appeal, he was released back into the world. With the arrest and extradition of his father, El Chapito and his brothers had a vast empire to oversee. Their rule wasn't exclusive, though. There were others like their uncle Aureliano El Guano Guzman and Ismael El Mayo Zambada, who also had a share in the power. Zambada wasn't just a powerful man in the cartel, he was a co-founder along with El Chapo. As the Sinaloa Cartel continues to thrive under new management, a storm is brewing in the north. The United States used sanctions as a weapon. It's a silent weapon, a pen on paper rather than guns and bullets. But in the right hands, it can be just as deadly. Juan Francisco Valenzuela, a man with a reputation that precedes him, is the first name on that list. Along with his family-run organization, they've been suspected of being the Sinaloa Cartel's trusted couriers. They are believed to transport multi-ton quantities of illicit drugs from Mexico to the US. With the sanctions in place, their operation was expected to take a hit. But the Treasury isn't stopping there. 2 more names from the Sinaloa Cartel, Hector Alfonso Araujo Peralta and Raul Rivas Chaires, are also on the list. Both are known figures in the drug trade, their names synonymous with the Sinaloa Cartel's vast network. In addition to these individuals, 3 Mexico-based transportation firms were also being targeted. These companies are suspected of playing a significant role in shipping illegal drugs, including fentanyl, across the border. The sanctions aim to dry up their resources, thereby disrupting the Sinaloa Cartel's operations. According to Brian E. Nelson, Undersecretary of the Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, he said, "The sanctions aim to starve the network of resources and deprive the Sinaloa Cartel of critical support it needs." It's clear that the United States is ramping up its efforts to stem the flow of drugs from Mexico. The strategy is different, attacking the money instead of the drugs. It's a fight of bank accounts and balance sheets, where money is the ammunition and economic strength is the armor. As we pull back the curtain on these grim tales, remember, the purpose isn't to glorify the violent lives they led, but to shed light on the harsh realities that exist in this world. If you found this journey into the darker corners of human nature compelling, be sure to give this video a like and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.